of that breaking news coverage. A vehicle believed to be the car of the Martin family found underwater in the Columbia.
The vehicle was found by a diver named Archer Mayo. He spent 7 years searching for it. That is a wild story.
I was shocked. Then I realized, like, I'm the first person to touch this since these little girls were probably screaming and crying and dying. Like, I'm witnessing something that really happened.
There could be 3 Martins still trapped in that car. The bodies of the 3 Martins, the parents, Ken and Barbara, and their daughter, Barbie.
Don't know what we're going to find. The vehicle's encased in debris and mud.
This is not an accidental or an inadvertent thing. This was blood, literally sweat and tears.
This is being treated very, very carefully right now because they don't know what they're going to find when they bring that car up to the surface. Bodies of Ken Martin, his wife, and daughter Barbara have never surfaced. Are they trapped inside the family car in the waters of the Columbia at Cascade Locks? And could that mystery soon be revealed?
We have a very exciting video for you guys today. This is a major breakthrough on a 66-year-old missing person cold case from Oregon. And I'm joined today by Archer Mayo, who made this discovery. He's a fellow search and recovery diver from Washington. And Archer, it's good to have you on here. It's good to talk to you. What is going through your mind right now? How did this happen?
Yeah, it's so big. First of all, Adam, I'm so happy to be on your program. I love your videos, and I follow you closely, and I like the tempo. I like everything you do. This is big. 7 years I've been working on this case, and when I saw the car, I honestly couldn't believe it. Like, it's been a white whale. It's like Moby Dick. It's like, well, that doesn't really exist. It just exists in my mind. I think my wife was actually probably thinking the same thing, but there it is. I saw it. Yeah, it's been a long process, and I'm really happy at this point.
Yeah, this is unbelievable, and I know we've been talking on and off here I've known you for a little while. And when you told me that you found the car, and I just had goosebumps all over. You sent me the pictures of the back, and we're gonna go all over those details in this video, and we're gonna have more coverage. We're gonna have a bigger video. I'm gonna hopefully get out to Oregon out there and be on scene with you. But also, before we get too deep into this video, you are writing a book about this whole story, right? About solving the Martins case after 66 years.
Yeah, 66 years of them missing, 7 years of me working on this. I'm working with a collaborator who's a journalist, actually, who's familiar with the case. And we're putting together a really amazing book, more than true crime, adventure, scuba, history, geology, geography. It's pretty fascinating. It's going to be, we haven't had a title yet, but people can go to martinmystery.com and they can actually sign up for updates there about the book, but also about the case. And this video will live there, hopefully. So we're really excited about the opportunity.
Absolutely. And everybody watching, please go check out, buy this book, go to his website. I'll have it down linked below. I'm really excited to read this and check this out. And I'm excited to talk to you about this case. So let's just jump right into it.
So this family of 5, so 3 little girls, just like typical Leave It to Beaver family in the 50s. They go driving out of Portland, Oregon into the Columbia River Gorge, which is where I live. And they are never seen again. That's all they know. They're in a station wagon. Their 3 little girls are like 10, 12, and 14. Innocent, nice people. The dad is like dresses up like Santa Claus for the neighbors. They're big into Christmas. It's December 7th. They just go missing. And it really, like, one of the biggest deals in Oregon history. And 9 months later, what they know is 2 girls ended up at the Bonneville Dam, which is downstream of kind of most of the gorge. And so they're like, okay, well, they're in the river because they died of drowning, apparently. So the 2 little girls.
May 1959, 5 months after the Martin family went missing, fishermen at Cascade Locks report 2 objects that look like bodies floating through the locks. A few days later, the bodies of Sue and Virginia Martin are recovered downriver. Weeks drag into months, months into years. And while there are plenty of theories on what could have happened to the Martins, over the last few decades, no other evidence or clues have surfaced in the search.
And that's it. I mean, we haven't had anything else. So I found out about the case 6, 7 years ago, and I just dug in. And I got more serious as I went, but finally, 7 years later, 66 years later, I have touched the car.
That is amazing. You know, and you sent me the pictures a couple pictures of the car in the back of it, and like I instantly got goosebumps looking at what you sent me, just because I know that feeling when you're down there, especially when you've been searching for so long, and you could finally, you can touch it, you can see the evidence. Like that's amazing that you found it. Like what was going through your head at that moment?
Like, I think, as a recovery diver, like I've got a search part of my brain and I've got a finding part of my brain, and it's like winning a lottery when I'm like see the thing I'm looking for. Honestly, like it really feels like boom.
Right.
And part of me was like, at first I saw this tire, and the tire didn't look like a 50s tire to me. Like I guess I saw like World War II truck tires that had this zigzaggy tread. I had that in my mind. That's what it was going to be. And this tire looked different, looked more like 80s or 90s, and it was sticking up out of the ground. So I'm 7 feet. So let's remember, I am digging under 50 feet of water. I'm digging 7 feet into the ground to where I believe this car is. And I've used metal detectors. I used a proton magnetometer. And so it's been a long process. So I think the car is where I'm digging, but I'm not sure. And when I see that tire, I don't really believe it, and then I look at the side and there's this really bright hubcap. Like I dig down on the side of it. I'll show you the video here in a few minutes. And I wasn't quite convinced, but then I measured the track. I found the other tire. So there's your back wheels. It's upside down, and I measured across, and it was like 56 inches, which is weird. I actually have a little model of a car here. So this is what the car looks like, right? So this is a 54 wagon.
Yep.
Notice how the rear wheel is tucked into the car.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that means the axle is actually pretty narrow on the back, but most cars didn't have that. So when I measured, I found the rear wheels, I measured them across, and it was like, oh my God, it's 56 inches. That's pretty unusual for it to be that narrow. Then I started looking at other parts, and I'm like, it's it. And that, it's overwhelming.
Yeah, that's wild. And I know there's a lot of details, a lot of story that goes into this, and we're going to go into all this, and I'm really excited. For everybody watching that doesn't know, Archer Mayo, he is a search and recovery scuba diver out in based in Washington, and you've been diving for a long time, right?
Yeah. I started diving seriously. I got sonar in like 2010, and then I started diving, and I recovered a research boat. There's a YouTube video out there that on a different channel that you may have seen, that we brought up a aluminum boat that was buried in the bottom. So I really specialize in not just looking for things to find, but actually like looking for one thing, like solving a mystery. And in this case, this is my third time of actually digging in the bottom of the river to solve it. Like it wasn't available for sonar. So I guess I'm developing a little bit of a niche of designing dredges, getting all the permissions you need to do that. In this case, we dug 7 feet. I dug 7 feet into the ground under 50 feet of water to find this car.
That's amazing. That's definitely past what we typically do on our end, when we're out diving. I've never dug below the surface. We go out, and the sonar technology has come so far in such a short time, and it almost makes it too easy. Like anybody can just go out nowadays and buy, $1,000 sonar and go scan the waters, and you can find cars out there. And it's just amazing. But the dredging is something I'm very new, and I definitely want to learn more about.
Yeah.
And I know we're going to talk into that, but I guess if we could start at the beginning, how did you even hear about this case? How did you get into it?
Well, I started posting some stuff on Facebook when I found I found like a John boat and brought it up, and just ridiculous little things on Facebook. And so an acquaintance of mine forwarded me a video that a local news station had done back in would have been 2018 or maybe. Anyway, it was the 50th anniversary, so it was quite a ways back, and it was a documentary about this family that went missing. I mean, it's funny about the Martin car because people who get into it really get into it. And this one guy in Portland, he's Jeff Gianola of Coin 6 CBS News. He was like so into it, and so he made an anniversary video about how it was never recovered. And there's been a lot of weird criminal stuff that's been overlaid. But my theory was always it was an accident, and that's what I believe ends up being correct.
Wake up, Portland. It's a wonderful day today.
It was another time, a more innocent place. Portland, Oregon, December 1958. And inside their Northeast Portland house, the Martin family made plans to collect Christmas boughs and greenery. They got into their 1954 Ford station wagon and left for a Sunday afternoon trip up the gorge. They were never seen or heard from again.
So when you watch these other videos, just be warned that a lot of the theories, a lot of the stuff is held together with with tape and string. It's not actually what happened. But anyway, I saw that video, I started working on it, and over the years, I got closer and closer. I realized the Cascade Locks was a really interesting place, probably where the car was, and then came up with a theory that maybe it was buried in this forgotten feature, basically a room under the river. 50 feet down, there was this 19th century stone pit that they had built that was forgotten about, and now it was full of material, right? 90 years later. So I realized that probably the car was someplace in that stack of debris. And so that's when I set out for digging, and there it was.
That's pretty amazing, because I know I was reading through, and I'm fairly, I know a little bit about this case, but there's so many theories I was reading about foul play, about about the oldest son who wasn't in the car at the time, about these other ex-cons. So I guess to go into it, can we kind of go over the timeline a little bit about what happened? Because I guess they were out, from my understanding, it was the parents, the 3 daughters. They were out looking for Christmas greens, like Christmas decorations. Is that what it was?
Yeah, they were really big into Christmas. So it was this young family, kind of Leave It to Beaver in 1958, and they left Portland. So we're about an hour outside of Portland. So you basically drive into the mountains of the Cascades. So Portland's pretty flat and mellow, and the river's really big. But once you get up into the gorge, the river gets narrower, and it's kind of more of a wild land. So they had made the Sunday afternoon plan to drive out to the gorge, and basically they were never seen again. A couple of weeks later, a credit card receipt comes, and this is an early credit card. It came back to the house saying they bought gas in a place called Cascade Locks. So kind of from Portland, you go, once you start east, there's the Bonneville Dam nowadays, and Cascade Locks. And as you get further east, there's Hood River, then the Dalles, which is 50 miles further than that. And over the years, there's been all sorts of theories, but going back to the timeline, so nothing happened. So there's a biggest manhunt in the state of Oregon.
The Martin family left Portland to pick up some greenery for their Christmas.
They were last seen buying 5 gallons of gas in this scenic location. Then they simply vanished off the face of the earth.
And Oregon and Washington are separated by the river, basically. So I live in one, but I'm in the other one all the time. So basically, no one knows where they are. But in May of that year, of the next year, so 59, so they go missing December 7th, 58. Don't show up to school the next day, don't show up to work. It's like this big mystery. And then in May, a guy is fishing in the Cascade Locks, like 6 a.m. in the morning, it's cold, and he sees 2 little girls' bodies float by in the navigation locks. And so he calls the police, and then the next day, one of the bodies washes up one place and one at the Bonneville Dam. And so they're like, okay, they must be in the river. So, and I ended up using those clues. I really didn't solve this with any information that wasn't available to the police back in the early days, but there's 3 different police departments. It's like Portland covered it, the Dalles, and Hood River. So, it wasn't like it is now with the internet. Like every place was their own little world. And so it wasn't super organized. And so that's the timeline. And then over the years, they kept searching. People searched the locks, people searched the Dalles, the scuba divers were sent down. They even lowered the whole river level 10 feet at one point with the dam to try to search in the 50s.
I read that I guess they lowered the river. I guess they had very early sonar of some sort, throughout the years, which probably was really basic. I that's way before me. So the stuff we have nowadays is just like clear as day. There's a car. But I was kind of wondering, how quickly do you think the car got buried? Because do you think it was pretty quick, or because if we had sonar today, back then that we have today, do you think it would have just been like boom, there's the car?
Totally, yeah. And and there's a map of the canal. So the canal is like thousands of feet long. I think they drove into the upstream end accidentally, because you used to be able to drive right to the edge, and I think it was a mistake. And then the car probably sat there for 4 or 5 months, because the current really picks up in the spring when all the snow melt from the mountains comes through. And that's when the bodies floated out. So I believe that in May, not only was the car now moving, rolling, and I can tell because I've seen it, the tailgate of the car is down. So the window is up, the back of the car is open. So that's where the girls floated out. And I believe the other 3 people had seatbelts on the front seat because they had installed them. So that's the timeline and so the car was rolling, and then it went into this pit that nobody knew about. I mean, they really was forgotten because it was built in the 1880s. And by the 1950s, they hadn't really remembered it had been full of water the whole time. So And then in 64, so 5 years later, there was a massive flood in the Pacific Northwest that put a lot of debris in, and that, I believe, covered the car. So any subsequent, even going down there, unless you knew where to look underground, you were not going to find it.
So the theory about this dredge or barge coming through and hitting it with an anchor, was there any truth to that?
No. And that was, the funny thing about these cases, when you look at it clue-wise, when you do the work the way I do it, you have to look for things that happened before something else. So in this case, the fisherman said, I saw the bodies, calls the police, tells them, then the next day the bodies are found. A lot of clues come into the police the other way around. The body washes up at the dam and someone's like, hey, I was upstream that day last week and so maybe I did something. And that's what I think that barge crew, it probably wasn't them being malicious or trying to, they just, people feel like they want to help. And so,
Right.
But once I knew that the bodies were 40 miles, so the Dalles is where that barge crew was. So the Dalles is 40 miles from where the bodies were seen. That's a long way to float. And then when the guy sees them, they're floating together, like touching basically each other. So the odds of them actually making it 40 miles, still being together in a river, seem like unbelievable to me. So that's why I really put all my effort into the locks.
People have made so many maps with like their starting point theories, and they thought they went over it with the cliffs, and this paint that matched the car over the cliffs, and so many things. It's
that was all BS. I looked at the police reports. Like nobody ever actually tested the paint. There was a different place they had sampled paint, but it was not. It was just all like it's just worked its way into truth, but it wasn't actually true.
Did he see tracks literally leading right off the water?
That's what it says in the reports. And paint scrapings on a rock right by the water.
We are standing on a rocky bluff in the Dalles above the Columbia River. In February 1959, 2 months after the Martins vanished, tire tracks leading into the river were found in this exact same spot. And on a rock near the edge of the cliff, paint scrapings matching the Martins' 1954 Ford station wagon. Detective Graven inspected the scene, writing in his report, there were no return marks to show that this particular vehicle returned and apparently was either pushed or driven off this cliff.
It seems like the list of theories goes on. I know, but basically, your thought as of right now is that it was just an accident.
I think so. I think that it was a. They had the car for 3 or 4 years, but apparently Ken, the dad, had arthritis in his neck. He wasn't good at. He had had several accidents, according to the police report, just backing up around, and he also, in the 50s, like those cars had like 6-volt electrical systems, 12 volts. I mean, the headlights were dim, and there was really nothing to stop. Like if you see the old locks, there was nothing to stop them from driving in. In fact, I have a model. Can I show you a model I built of the locks?
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is made out of cardboard, and I'll back up a ways so you can see the whole thing. So this is a 150-foot ship. This is what that they used to take through the locks back in the 1900s, a stern wheeler. So basically, nowadays you can see about this much of it because it's flooded. So you can drive up to the edge, and there's this big canal that's 40 feet deep. And it used to be that the doors would close and open, and they would like raise and lower the water level because there was a waterfall that was on the river at this point. So this kind of goes around the waterfall. So
Gotcha.
The thing that I discovered that no one knew is the way there's this pit in here. So there's this curved wall that was designed to hold the doors, the pressure of the doors. But most canals weren't designed this way. This was really unique as far as we know, because the geology is not very solid in this place. So the car, I believe, fell in here. They drove in accidentally because you could drive right up to the edge, nothing to stop you. The car sat here for, December, January, February, March, April, and then in May, the current's really ripping. And so when the car starts rolling, the bodies floated up 40 feet. The guy who was fishing was down here, and he saw them drift right by him. So then the car keeps rolling and deposits itself in the pit, and that's where I found it. So basically, and just for scale, let's see. So this is an F-150, and that's to scale. See that little thing right there, a little bug like that. Yep. So this is 90 feet across. This is pretty big. So that's where I looked because I knew that there was no way if a car went down in here, it could get up over this wall.
Did you find the pit down there from just diving or from research?
Well, no, I found the pit because, the pit's full of stuff, basically, like at least 80% full. And so it was like, oh, the bottom is concrete and stone. And then all of a sudden there's this place with sand and rocks. It doesn't make any sense to me. So that's when I went to the Oregon Historical Society, and they had all the pictures of them building. And there was one photo of that feature that it's the one with the guy up on top, like laying down, and you can see the scale of those doors. It's huge. Those doors are like 40 feet, and the pit is 20 feet deep. And once I mean, I know those librarians probably think I'm so strange because it's like totally quiet. I'm wearing white gloves and going through photographs, and I'm like, holy shit, I found the car. I knew I found the car at that moment.
It's so difficult in these older cases most of the time just because information gets lost. You know, me personally, I'm calling detectives and trying to get info on these cases from even like 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And they're like, well, we don't have that in our systems anymore. We have to like look through a cardboard box in our archives or something like that. And then most of the time I don't even get calls back just because it's just a lot of work. And it's just wild that, you know, there's so many cases and now that are being solved just by people, you know, like you and going out and doing the research yourselves and going the extra mile, and you figure out that one little key piece of information that that's basically all that was needed, and then you have that pathway, and you know where to start looking further instead of just a wild goose chase, which so often happens. Totally. And you know, and this is definitely, you know, from my experience, you know, we go out searching. It's a learning experience every time. You know, we're out searching, right? You know, every time there's a case, you go. You do, you know, your mile rate, your 3 mile radius, 5 mile radius. Look at all the ponds, boat ramps.
Sure.
And the thing I'm learning more often than not that is that you know, I guess like the simplest solution is often, you know, the simplest like answer is usually the solution. Like was it Occam's razor? So like I'm always overthinking things. Yeah. And I think this case has been one. The Martins case has been overthought for 66 years, and there's been so many theories, and it's just amazing to me that I guess there's still some grandchildren that are surviving, right? That can
I think so. I think Don, the older brother, I think he has some kids, and they have kids. So I haven't met them yet. I'm not sure all of them are still alive, but I hope to meet them in this because it was really important to me. The more I got into it, the more I realized like this poor guy. 18 years old. So, I mean, I've got a son who's like almost that age. He's living in New York and he finds out his whole family's missing, like his little sisters. And so that's so confusing. And then on top of it, he's kind of a suspect, right? So, and then it just, his whole life was spent like in the shadow of something that he actually had nothing to do with. And that really became more like emotionally resonant with me. In fact, the name of my dredge boat is called Dawn's Grace. And it's written on there.
This was Don Martin's home until a few years ago when he died. Don raised 4 children. One son who lives here wanted to talk to us and learn more about the disappearance of his grandparents and aunts 50 years ago, something his father didn't share with him. But after agreeing to meet me, he changed his mind. Don Martin's daughter later told us, it's a chapter in our lives better left closed.
This idea of like, I always thought it was an accident, and not that it just seems like an injustice. And I think it's interesting how it's like Malaysia Flight 370. It's like when there's zero information, where do our brains go?
Right. Usually way overthinking things. And then, you know, I've been able to solve a few cases the past 6 months. And then they were in just obvious close by spots. It was an accident, but at first, you know, I was overlooking. I was searching places 10, 20 miles away. I mean, everything, and then, you know, you just do that research, and it's something, you know, having the internet, having these resources, you know, going to the local like archives like you did, it's something that I think is important to make these videos and content for people to see, because more people can get found that have been missing for so long. Totally. More people can do this research and send the information if they have a case, you know, to you, to our teams, to people across the country. And I think it's just an amazing how the movement's grown. And people are being found, you know, every week. Right.
And the more you do, the more people know to reach out to you. And that's how I found out about this case, right? Something else I found. Yeah, and I think too, in this case, like the Columbia Rivers, because it has so much current and so much water goes through it, that like when I did that research boat, that $85,000 boat video that's out there, I really learned, because just like you're saying, you have a hypothesis of where you think that may have gone, or they may have drifted, or they may have floated, and then you hunt down that hypothesis until you figured out that you're wrong. Then you have to come up with a new hypothesis. Then you do that one, and then you just keep doing this. And so when I did that boat video, that was at the end of hundreds of hours of realizing that there's not just one river in the Columbia. There's like 4 rivers. There's a river of sand. There's a river of organic material. There's in these dunes. These dunes actually migrate upriver, believe it or not, like the waves of the shape. So when they come to a boat, they like cover the boat. And so it was really kind of a master's degree in understanding, like for that project, set me up to understand like this is a complicated environment with a lot of forces. And then you have floods periodically. You have a flood every year, and then you have every 20 years or 30 years, you have a massive flood. So like putting all that together and building this model in the brain that you can start going back through things, to think of like making the hypothesis better. Yeah.
Right. So the car was 7 feet underground at the bottom. You said 50 feet down?
Yeah, 50 feet is, the canal is about 45 feet deep there. And then I had to dig 7 feet into the ground and I used this metal detector. I've got a big, it's got a huge coil on it. So it can find something like 6 feet away, like a big car. So, but the problem is there's so much stuff in this pit. Like there's batteries from forklifts, and there's barbecue grills, and everybody who's ever fished has lost at least one folding chair, So it's, it was really demoralizing. And the bones that end up there, because the state of Oregon throws all the deers that get hit on the highway into this place, not knowing that they stick to the pit. So like I'm just digging through bones and all sorts of crap. And So I dug down and eventually got it.
So you were going based on your metal detector saying there's something big here, right? So how did you know how to keep digging? Like 7 feet down, like I would have gotten probably after 2 feet being like, oh no, it's not here, right?
Right, because you're upside down, underground. And if the land slides, I'm dead, right? Because I'm 50 feet underwater already. So in this case, actually, the metal detector wasn't super useful because there's so much other metal stuff. And there's 2 other cars. There's an F-150 down there, and there was a Volkswagen Bug that I found at different heights, like they were more recent. In this case, I went by the fishing guy. Remember I mentioned that guy who saw the bodies float by. He told the police they were about 25 feet off the bank when they drifted by. So I was like, well, I'm just going to assume the car rolled straight when those bodies came out. That's a clue on where it's going to be. And I knew that cars end up in the very back of the pit because cars get a lot of energy going when that current, and even when they fall out of the current, they're still got a lot going on them. So all the cars I'd found were in the very back. So I'm like, okay, that's my x-axis, the back of the pit. And then the y-axis, I used that fishing sighting of where the bodies were and said, well, that's my place to start. So, and that's where it ended up being. But it could have, you never know what happens to a car because it had to roll like 700-800 feet down a hallway. And it could have rolled to the other side, but I just got lucky.
Yeah, that's you say lucky, but the way I feel about these cases is almost like they find you sometimes. It's like they wanted to be found. After so many years, it was the right time, and that's kind of how I feel about it personally. Is like sometimes these, usually I say it about finding like a treasure or something.
Yeah.
Finding a lost phone or a lost ring or something. It's something so hard to find that you find it. You're like, how in the world did this happen?
Right.
But I just feel like it was like a purpose, like it was meant to happen.
Yeah, totally. And that, you asked me what it was like the moment I found it. And that was really shocking to me was because here's this thing I've invested, probably $70,000 over the years of, buying special boats, building the dredge, designing the dredge, doing all this stuff. Because this is not a dredge that exists for gold mining. This is like a special thing to go 50 feet down. So I put all this into it. So it was a huge win to see the car and to know it was the car. Actually, though, Adam, I was shocked. I instantly, I had all that stuff in my brain for like a second. And then I realized, I'm the first person to touch this since these little girls were probably screaming and crying and dying. I'm witnessing something that really happened. It had been a mystery that no one could solve. And I'm like, yes, I can solve a mystery no one can solve. But then the reality of their reality hit me. And that was super sad. And I wasn't expecting to feel that while I'm touching the car, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I've done that with body recoveries, I guess, where I know on sonar where the body is, I know where the feet are, I know where the arms are. But when you still go down and you touch it and you're like, oh, that's the shirt he put on that morning, right? Mm-hmm. It's different. And that really hit me.
Yeah, I think it's, everybody deals with it differently. Finding these cars with, missing people's, bodies inside. And it's like you almost need to detach yourself. And also there's that point where it hits you. And it's like, it's having that fine line. You know, you need to get the job done, but you're also like, you're respecting that this is a person who had, you know, they had memories, they had this life, this family, and you know, this is a horrible thing that happened, but being able to like to get them out of the ground, to put them, to actually bring them home after 66 years, I just think is unbelievable. And I haven't heard about a case, you know, this old being solved with the vehicle. I don't know if you have, but this seems like a pretty big one.
Yeah, it feels like it to me. And I mean, I in my mind, it's huge. My wife is so tired of hearing about it. You know, like I would lay awake because, you know, designing dredge parts and just thinking about where they could be. Like I'd go back through all my notebooks and I just like, wow, how many times can I draw the pit? Like thousands of times I've drawn it. Like where could they be? It's been an obsession actually. And but hopefully, yeah, I mean, it's and everybody dies and everything's a tragedy and lots of people go missing and lots of people, you know, but when you really hone in on somebody else's experience, it's so rich. And I know that it happens every day and awful things happen, but in this case, like when you really make it your world, there's something pretty fascinating about that. And then I definitely had that feeling of like I am here for you. Like once I went down there and I'm like, oh my God, this is the car and this is them and they've been alone down here. And I mean, they're dead, so they're not thinking this thought. But in my mind, they're thinking like, oh, we are just lost to understanding. We're lost to history. We're lost to reputation wise. Like nobody knows. And actually, I almost died. I got trapped in a salmon net near the same place once, and I barely got out. A couple hundred pounds of air. Like I really almost died. And I thought for a while, like, this is where I die, and no one's ever going to know. And no one's even going to find me because it was like weirdly 20 feet from the surface, 40 feet off the bottom. But I kind of came up underneath it and I didn't realize it was streaming with the current. And in the salmon, it has holes that are that big. So it's tangled. I've got a flashlight on my hand and it's tangled. It's on my GoPro, which is on this side of my full face mask, completely tangled in it. And the more I fight it, the more like water's leaking into my mask now because it's like getting twisted. And I really, I barely got out of that. And they didn't put it together until after I found the Martin family that I'm like, oh yeah, this is kind of what happened for them too, but they didn't get out of it, right?
Yeah.
What does it mean to die alone, scared? And it's like, yeah, it's serious.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the thing when you sent me the pictures, I was kind of impressed. It seemed like the car was pretty preserved.
Oh, it's so preserved. And I think, I mean, we don't have it out of the ground yet, but I think because that flood, there was this, so in 1964, there was this weird flood that happened where it was really cold in the Northwest. And then there was a lot of snow on top of very frozen ground. And then it rained, like we get these Hawaiian pineapple expresses here. And it rained on top of the snow. It couldn't go into the ground. So it made this flood of like weird concrete type sand. And I believe that it encased the car completely where there's no oxidation. And there may be skeletons, but there also may be more than skeletons because once the oxygen that's in there, there's no more available oxygen, right? This is just a few years after they went missing. So
yeah,
I have a piece of the car. Can I grab it real quick?
Oh yeah, yeah.
This is the part that I knew, and actually it was actually better preserved when I took it out. It's actually aged a lot in the month I've had it out. But this is the so on the back of a 54 Ford, this is the tail lamp for the license plate. And it says 1959. I don't know if it's backwards for you, but so this, in the old days, there wasn't stickers on your license plate. They would actually send you a tag, literally a metal tag that you'd bend around the license plate. So this is the license plate here. It's Oregon had a dark blue. There's a little bit of dark blue, but it's gone. But the 59 meant that this happened in 58. So yeah, that's the license, the bulbs under there. So this is a very specific piece because 54 Fords weren't like 55s or 53s, like they went through a lot of changes. So I have that. This is also off of the, so this would have been right above it on the tailgate. When we see the video, you'll see where these were, like there's spots that are obvious. So it actually has aged quite a bit more since it's been out in the river, but out of the river. But I think it's going to. There's the color of the license plate, that royal blue.
Wow. And was the tag intact at all?
Not the rear one. So the rear one, because this thing is also how you open the lift gate. So I think it got dragged on the ground or against stuff. And so the license plate is just like you see it. Just that little tag exists. The front license plate, I haven't seen it yet because it's still deeper. That one should be protected because it's screwed onto the bumper. And the bumpers on these cars are like pretty massive chrome bumpers. So
Yeah.
I expect the front license plate will be complete. But it's a really unusual car. The fact that it's cream white and red, because the other pickup truck down in the pit is bright white, and there's a real big difference. So when I saw that tailgate, I was like, oh my God, there's the odds of a cream white car with a tailgate and it says Ford-O-Matic on there. I knew instantly once I saw that.
And you found the other cars before that one also buried?
Yeah, no, the first one I found was a 2000 or like a 1990s Ford F-150 it was exposed into the river because there hasn't been a flood since 96. And I think this car went in the early 2000s. So it's just been kind of up on its side. It's an F-150 against the wall, and it's about half buried. The driver's side is completely buried. And I got the VIN number out of it, gave it to the police, and it was stolen. There was a rash of pickup trucks being stolen back in the early 2000s. So someone ditched it in there. So that was the clue about how cars act in this environment, right? Like the fact that it was all the way against, the pit's 45 feet this way, but the fact that the car just kept going until the wall physically stopped it is how I then looked at a different part and found the mystery. Yeah,
that's amazing how being buried preserved it so well. It made me think, recently we found, we were out up in Lake Ocoee, Tennessee, and we found some old, I think they were 60s cars, maybe.
Wow.
Similar, age. And the ones above, were kind of rusted out. With the current goes over them, they just wear them. But I found one that was pretty buried, and I started, moving the silt over it, and it was very well preserved. And I hadn't come across that often because usually we're finding more modern cars, but
totally.
It's amazing that they can be preserved for so long, even underwater. Because usually we'll find them and they're like frames and just nothing left.
Yeah,
but that's amazing.
Yeah. So we haven't seen much. I mean, I've seen the gas tank. I've seen the underside. I made a little model with this car, kind of covering with rice to show you what's. And remember, this is 7 feet down. So when you dig a hole that's 7 feet down, it's not like a shaft, like a chimney shaft, because the ground just keeps giving away. So a 7-foot hole here is like a 14-foot wide pit all the way around because it keeps collapsing. So for me, I'm way down at the bottom of this, and I can see the axles, I can see the wheels, I can see the gas tank, the exhaust pipes, and the bumper. And then because the tailgate was open, it shows the body color, right? And I can show you that video. Do you want to take a look at that?
Yeah.
Okay. So we are in the bottom of the pit. That is the tire of the car right there. So you're hearing the shells and the stuff tinkling through. The last part of the dredge is metal, so you can hear the rocks go through. So that's the tire. That's the driver's side rear tire. And you can see there's snow tires, I think. And then at first I was like, are those 50s tires? But they look more modern. But there's a big fish head that's about to go through. There's so much gross stuff down here. There it goes. It's very gratifying when a giant fish body goes through. There's so many bones, man. Bones and rocks. Sticks. So these bigger rocks don't go through. There's a big stick. So all this stuff fell down from the day before. All these bigger rocks aren't going to go through. So the problem is because I'm down in a hole, I got to find a place to put all this stuff that it can't go through the dredge. So there's the car. So we're looking at, the rear bumper is going to be to the left. The front of the car is going to be to the right. There we go. There's the white wall. There's the stainless steel hubcaps, which look brand new. I was actually pretty shocked about it. Flipping. I think in this case, I was going to try to see if I could get a hubcap off, but I wasn't successful. So the dredge, it's about a 5-inch dredge, and it's pretty powerful. So I'm trying to get down. All these mussel shells fell down over the night because they're on the very top layer of everything, and they don't stay put. So there we go. Down the side, you can see the white wall and see the hubcap. Yeah, lots of stuff. All right, so just scooping can't really get the nozzle into that space. I'm really hoping to, so the hill is on the other side of the tire. So I'm hoping that if I can dig on the downhill side of it, stuff won't fill in as quick. And I'm trying to figure out a way to get the hubcap off so I can do it. Now up there was a zip tie, and that's on the axle, right? So, and I put a little fishing float off a net on that, just in case something happened to me and the police or somebody go looking for it, because I told them it was there, and just in case it's recovered with stuff, they can find that float. in case I somehow never go back down there again or something. So yeah, I'm digging. At first I thought it was like a Mercedes hubcap because they had these like little markers all the way around. I'm trying to see if I can get the so that float. So now I'm looking at where the kind of tailgate is. I think I abandoned the idea that I'm going to be able to get that hubcap off of there in a minute. So yeah, so when I first saw the white wall, it was of course buried under 6 feet of ground. So I'm at the very bottom of a 7-foot hole at this point. And so when I first saw it didn't look, you see how the very top, that doesn't look that white? The tire was really dark gray, even the side of it, until I rubbed it with my glove, and then it was like, oh, it's a white wall. Because I knew I was looking for white walls from the 50s. And it's a really wide tire. When I found the Volkswagen, I knew, it's like basically a motorcycle tire. It's much narrower. All right, so I think I maybe give up on that. There we go. I'm giving up on that. So this is the gas tank. That's the gas tank underneath that black area. And I'm just having to clear off all the sticks. So, and get all the stuff that fell down overnight. This is the second day I found the car, basically, because the first day my GoPro wasn't working. Now I got a rock stuck in the dredge. Pull that out. You can see it goes down to zero visibility pretty easy when you're down there because stuff is kind of constantly falling. So that's the gas tank to the right. It's a big gas tank. And then, so remember the front of the car is going to be to the right side. This is the gas tank. And then the rear bumper is going to be to the left. So we're going to get to that in a minute. So now I'm at the back of the gas tank. Now I can start to see right there in the middle upper screen, you're going to start to see the edge of the bumper. So there's a huge chrome bumper. Right, let's see, we'll wait till it clears up a bit. It's kind of nice when I can sit there. So right by my edge of my hand, that's the outside of the bumper. So we're under the car, basically. We've got about 1,400 pounds of air. I use high pressure tanks and with a DIN regulator. So I generally start off about 3,500 pounds. There's a bone, vertebrae of some sort. There's so many bones down there. I mean, I'm always looking for human ones, but I don't think I found any yet. There's another tire that was just slack. So now I'm just letting that go, kind of clearing that area off. So there's the bumper showing again. So now I'm between the bumper and the body of the car, right? In a second, I start to see the color of the tailgate. It's going to start showing itself. So now I'm going back behind there, pull out something that was stuck. Stuff wedges in the dredge all the time. And the pain is when it clogs up like further in the dredge, and I have to go take it apart underwater and try to extract rocks that got stuck or weird pieces of things. So that's the bumper. So yeah, once again, a lot of this is by feel. Honestly, I can't see for sometimes 15, 20 minutes at a time. It's just all by feel. And I have to wonder if I'm getting, the whole hillside could be sliding down on me. So I'm always kind of prepared for that. There's a big vortex. I'm under the river current. And then there's this vortex above that goes kind of around me. So like I can contaminate the area I'm in, but it kind of clears pretty relatively quickly. So there's the float. See what I've cleared in the meantime. So now we're back by the lift gate. There's the gas tank. There's the ridges of the gas tank. So now there's another piece of bone, big piece of bone stuck in the dredge. Okay. So now there we go. So that's the bumper line. That's just on the right side. So now I'm going because I know I saw it yesterday. I saw it the day before that there was a tailgate there. So I'm kind of looking for that tailgate. The bumper. So remember, I'm only seeing a little bit of the car. The rest of the car is buried. The front of the car is buried deeper. This is kind of the shallowest spot between the tires and the bumper area. So in a second, I think I start seeing the body color. so much stuff comes down. And then the dredge is constantly like, I kind of keep my hand like right now my fingers aren't in it. Usually I keep my fingers kind of in there we go. Now I'm seeing body color. So this is that cream. That is the tailgate. That is in the down position. So we're under the car and there's a rock stuck as normal. There we go. Okay, good. So now you can see, and so it says Ford-O-Matic right there, where there's a backwards F and Ford-O-Matic. That's the type of transmission which probably ended up killing them all. And then right there is where the license plate holder that I showed you in the interview, that is where that mounts. And so I think when that flapped down, it actually broke off because the bumper, it interfered with the bumper somehow. So that's where the license plate was. And right above there is that clear spot, just an inch to the left. That's where that Ford logo, that plastic Ford logo was on there. But they were both kind of dislodged when I found it. And I took them off the day before. Like I said, the GoPro hadn't worked. It hadn't actually registered. Right before I fell back in the water, it had my assistant had turned it off instead of turning it on. So let's see what we got here. So I got 1,100 pounds of air, so I'm just a little less than halfway through a tank. High pressure air, I can stay down for quite a while. And I've got really big tanks too. I have like 120 cubic foot tanks at high pressure. So that's 1150, I think is what that says, yeah. So, so that's the mechanism that would open the tailgate that I was just touching. There's the Ford-O-Matic. And then stuff continues to fall down, So I mean, what's defining about this, and then I showed you that piece, is this. I have the license plate bracket, and the license plate bracket, it says it expires in 1959. This car went missing in 58. Then the color of the car is very unique, and the fact that this is a tailgate, and it says Ford-O-Matic on it, which was a rather unusual thing to have an automatic transmission back in the 50s. There's just so much cedar wood, and this is all kind of stuff jammed in there over the years. Remember, there's been multiple floods. So I don't know if I get that piece out or not. But so now we're looking at the underside of the car there. Yeah. So I've got quite a bit of time still on my tank, so I'm not sure how much more. I think I was just down there to video this day just to kind of make sure I had proof, because I'm about to be done for the year since the water's getting cold. So you can see where the logo was. It was right above the latch there. And I kind of recognize rocks that are going to clog the dredge, so I grab them real quick. Then this orange thing, so there's at the bottom of the screen, you see this piece of fabric. So I built a port. I cut out the dredge nozzle so that if something clogs up the nozzle, I can just pull off this piece of fabric, and that opens up another way for the suction to go in. So then I can take that out. I can take whatever's clogging it out. So, like if my hand were to get stuck in there, or if the rock was completely to stick and there's so much suction I can't pull it out, I just peel off. Yeah, so now I'm touching where the logo was. There's the mechanism. So that's a white wall. So when I found these other cars, like one time I got real excited that I'm like, oh, I found a tire under the ground, and then I realized it wasn't a white wall. So in this case, like that's the outside of the tire, and I dig down and then I find the hubcap, and then it says Ford on it. So I knew at that point that I was onto something.
Yeah, that hubcap is very unique, right? I mean, the red in the middle.
Right. Yeah. And I had seen a picture of a car. You know, that's the thing about these cases is stuff gets into the case that's inaccurate. And so a picture in the police file, and I have some of the police file stuff here. I've got, so this is the research I've done. So first of all, these are all my permissions from the Army Corps of Engineers. I've got inadvertent plan of human remains discovery. I've got plans of like Native American artifacts. I've got hundreds of pages of permission. But one of the pictures that I made it into the police file was like of a different car, same exact car and paint, but it had different wheels. It had painted rims. And I just took that as real. And so when I was down there and I saw the hubcap, I'm like, darn, it's not the right car. Until later that night, I'm in the hot tub trying to, get my body heat back, and I go online and I look at what a hubcap looks like on a 54 Ford, and I kind of found it when I was in the hot tub. That's the story I tell myself.
No, that's amazing. Yeah, I mean I can't imagine the feeling you felt, once it clicked. That's happened to me a couple times too. And you second guess yourself, and then you're like, oh wait, and everything just comes together, and then just
right,
like, boom. This is their car. So I guess what is the next step into this recovery? How is it going to get out? How are you do you have to dig a bigger hole, dredge it out? I mean, how are you going to keep everything inside?
Yeah. No, that's the trick. First, I want to tell you that, so this whole 7 years, I'm writing a book, and the book is going to be covering like all these theories and where the police went right and wrong, and just all these things, and how we ended up. And the story's not finished yet because we still have to bring the car out. So I just yesterday told the police, told the detectives. So we're going to meet in the next couple of days. I'm going to show them the video that I've shown you. I haven't shown anybody else yet. So then I expect, I don't know, I've never gone through this kind of process with them. I expect what's going to happen is I have the permit to dig in the river that they would have to get anyway. So probably, hopefully, I will be able to completely unbury the car. I have to build like kind of a snow fence around the outside to stop stuff from going down in the hole. So I'll get some of that orange plasticky stuff and drive some fence posts around the car to hold back all the mussel shells and everything that comes down every day. Because when I'm done digging every day and I go back the next day, it's like 3 feet underground again.
Wow.
Because stuff just keeps, because stuff doesn't weigh very much underwater. Even gravel is like really light. So it keeps coming down. So I'll build a barrier around it, is what I imagine. Dredge it out until I get, because it's upside down. So the frame points, I'll get 4 frame points, put some hooks on it, and then we'll get a crane, hopefully, to come, because it's only 30 feet from land. I mean, there's really like a parking lot right there. So they'll be able to put the crane there and then hopefully lift it out. If stuff does come out of the car, I don't know what the condition is. The windshield's broken out, if all the windows, I mean, when you look at the car itself, they're actually kind of deep set, these windows. They're like the way the car is designed. A car could roll and maybe not break out all the windows. So that's my hypothesis. But fortunately, anything that comes out of it, it goes over the wall that defines the back of the pit. And then there's a vortex that stuff would get stuck. So I'd be able to dive down 60 feet and find anything that came out of the car, because I know that area well enough to know what would be new. So it wouldn't just keep going. So yeah, it's a mystery. And the snow melt's going to come through soon. So we got to plan around that. So hopefully by the middle of the summer, we'll be ready to pull this thing out. And then the police will be able to, see if it truly was an accident. The book, we're working on it now. It comes out hopefully by December. And it's just a huge adventure book. It's a little bit of true crime. It's a lot of adventure, diving adventure. If you love this kind of content, I think it's got to be gratifying. It's going to be 350 pages. We're working on it now with an author who's actually pretty familiar with the case. He was actually a producer on one of the TV specials about it. So,
oh really? And what was the book title and website, and how do you find it?
Well, thank you. We don't have a book title yet, but it is, if you go to martinmystery.com, all this stuff, this video is going to live there. My videos are going to live there. All the press, all the stuff's going to live there. So it hasn't gone live yet because we haven't, by the time this video goes out, it will be live. But martinmystery.com, and that way you can put your email in there, and we will send you updates on everything that happens in this case. As we develop more content and as the mystery solves itself. So martinmystery.com, the book, it's going to be awesome. We're still in the phases of that.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm really excited. And as of this video coming out, I guess the news, you just put out a press release not too long ago, releasing that this is the car. It's been found. It's going to be a minute, like you're saying, before it actually has a lot of moving parts. I don't even, I can't even begin to imagine what that's going to take to get this car out.
Yeah.
But I know that's, you're going to document and write about all that.
Absolutely. And hopefully you'll be out here. I mean, I'm planning on you being out here midsummer so that we can dive together. And I'm going to make sure that if I am doing this work for the police, I'm going to write you in as a photographer having access to the crime scene. So I hope you could make that.
Yeah, I really hope I can too. I think that'll be an amazing adventure. And my hopes is to put out a full video going over all these things and doing another sit-down interview and way more in-depth details, because I think there's so much into the story, and it's just it might be one of the greatest tales of of all these false rumors, of all these different pathways and ways, things people thought would happen to the car, what happened to this family. And it's just, I think it helps. It's going to help a lot of other cases in the future going forward. And I'm really excited to hopefully get out there with you and show that. So stay tuned. Definitely subscribe. Follow I'll have all of Archer's social media, website, links, everything you need to stay updated on this case down in the description below. And what's the next thing after this case? Do you have other ones you're looking into?
No, you know what? I really, it's like I'm just taking a breath, honestly. And like the book's got to get done. It's going to be a great book, but it's going to take a lot of work. So I'm actually designing a one-man dramatic show about this where I perform it, and it's an hour long, and it's about my kind of the emotional process of taking on this case and eventually solving it. And I think that'll be really useful to tour around, like once the book is for sale, to get people excited about the level of richness that this case has. This is not an accidental or an inadvertent thing. This was blood, literally sweat and tears. So yeah. I'm really excited for you and what you're doing, Adam. I really appreciate like being able to pop on here and share this amazing case. And I know that it's going to do well for the world to have this kind of thing exposed.
Absolutely. Yep. And I appreciate you coming on, and I'm excited to see what else we find out about this case going forward.
Yeah, me too.
You're looking at the moments this massive crane removed what could be the Martin family vehicle, or at least most of it. Hood River County Sheriff Matt English tells us they have the main parts, including the engine, which could make for a positive identification. But he says he's staying cautiously optimistic as this investigation continues.
They're going to take that vehicle back to our secure facility. They hope to start processing a bit tonight. Look for the identifying information that we had from the files, and then go from there. Honestly, there's a probability that we may never know.
We also checked in with Archer Mayo, the local diver who discovered the car back in November after spending 7 years searching for it. He says this week and today's excavation have been emotional.
I'm so excited to see how many people are interested in this now, because I've had this virus for quite a while, and to now see people really responding to the Martin mystery and the family and the compelling narratives of this, and to bring it to a head has been super great.
Mayo says he's hoping to help in the investigation in any way he can to help bring closure to this decades-old case.